The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's sky on a Tuesday morning like a silver needle against the blue canvas of space. Commander Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee aboard the International Space Station when the sensors started screaming. Warnings that something enormous had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the moon. The cylindrical vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from end to end and moved with the smooth grace of something that had never known the pull of gravity or the resistance of atmosphere. Jake's hand shook slightly as he reached for the emergency communication system. In all his years as an astronaut, he had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, his mouth felt dry as desert sand. The ship was beautiful in an alien way, with surfaces that seemed to shift between metallic silver and deep blue depending on how the sunlight hit them. Strange symbols ran along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if his human brain was not designed to process such geometries. Down on Earth, President Lisa Chun was pulled from a budget meeting by her chief of staff, who whispered 3 words that changed everything forever. First contact protocol. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun that had just been fired. Within minutes, the Situation Room filled with military advisors, scientists, and diplomats, all talking at once in voices that carried the weight of history being made. NASA Director Carl Watson was the first to suggest direct communication. His weathered face showed the calm that came from decades of dealing with the impossible made routine. "We need to try the universal mathematics approach," he said to the room full of people who suddenly realized that every science fiction movie they had ever watched was about to become very real. If they're advanced enough for interstellar travel, they'll understand prime numbers and basic physics. The alien ship remained motionless in lunar orbit for 6 hours while Earth's governments argued about who should speak for the human race. The United Nations building in New York became the center of frantic activity as representatives from every nation demanded to be part of the first conversation with beings from another world. Ambassador Maria Rodriguez found herself thrust into a role that no amount of diplomatic training could have prepared her for. The breakthrough came when the aliens made the first move. A beam of coherent light struck the International Space Station, and Jake Morrison found himself face to face with something that challenged everything he thought he knew about life in the universe. The holographic projection showed a being that stood nearly 3 meters tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. 4 arms moved with fluid grace, while large black eyes regarded Jake with what might have been curiosity or perhaps amusement. Captain Velketh of the Galactic Survey ship Velinara spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes mixed with the whisper of water over stones. The translation device somehow made the sounds into perfect English, though Jake could hear the alien harmonics underneath the familiar words. "Greetings, creature of the third planet. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding between our peoples." Jake's response was probably not the most diplomatic thing he could have said, but it came from the heart. "Welcome to Earth. We've been waiting for you for a long time." The alien's large eyes seemed to widen, and Jake could swear he saw something like surprise cross that strange, beautiful face. The conversation that followed would be analyzed by historians for centuries to come. Captain Velketh explained that his people, the Zephyrians, had been monitoring Earth's radio transmissions for what he called several rotations, though the exact time measurement remained unclear. They had classified Earth as a Class 30 death world, which apparently was the highest danger rating in their galactic database. "This confuses us greatly," Captain Velketh continued in his musical voice. "Our long-range scans show a world with stable geology, moderate gravity, and acceptable atmospheric composition. Yet the classification insists that your planet is among the most dangerous in known space. We have come to resolve this discrepancy." Dr. Amanda Foster was brought into the conversation as Earth's leading expert on extreme life forms and planetary biology. Her excitement was barely contained as she spoke to the first alien intelligence humanity had ever encountered. "Captain Velketh, we would be honored to show you exactly why Earth earned that classification. But I should warn you that what seems normal to us might be quite shocking to beings from other worlds." The alien captain's response carried what sounded like amusement mixed with scientific curiosity. "We are prepared for hostile environments, Dr. Foster. Our environmental suits are rated for Class 10 death worlds, and we have extensive experience with dangerous planetary conditions." "How much more hazardous could your world possibly be?" Dr. Foster exchanged glances with the other humans in the communication room. Her smile carried the weight of knowledge that would soon change how an entire galactic civilization viewed both Earth and humanity. "Captain, I think you're about to discover that the universe is far more dangerous and wonderful than your people ever imagined. Earth didn't just create life, it created survivors." The alien ship began launching smaller vessels toward Earth's surface as Captain Velkith announced that a research team would conduct a comprehensive survey of the planet's biosphere. The Zephyrians seemed confident in their technology and their understanding of dangerous worlds. They had no way of knowing that they were about to encounter a planet so hostile that it had forged its dominant species into something the galaxy had never seen before. President Chun authorized the landing and designated Dr. Steve Palmer and Dr. Nancy Liu as the human guides who would accompany the alien research team. Both scientists understood the magnitude of what was about to happen. They were not just showing aliens around Earth, they were about to reveal the true nature of humanity itself and the incredible world that had shaped them into what they had become. The Zephyrian research vessel touched down in a meadow outside Denver, Colorado, with the gentle precision of a soap bubble settling on water. Science Officer Chiron emerged first from the sleek craft wearing an environmental suit that gleamed like polished mirror under the morning sun. The suit covered his tall blue form completely with only his large black eyes visible. Through a transparent faceplate that seemed to bend light in impossible ways, Dr. Steve Palmer watched the alien take his first steps on Earth soil and felt a strange mix of pride and anxiety. Beside him, Dr. Nancy Liu checked her tablet one final time, making sure all the biological monitoring equipment was functioning properly. They had spent weeks preparing for this moment, but nothing could have really prepared them for the reality of watching an alien being experience Earth for the first time. "The gravity is slightly higher than our homeworld, but well within acceptable parameters," Chiron reported to his ship through a communication device that translated his musical voice into English. "Atmospheric composition is oxygen-rich, but not dangerously so. Temperature and humidity levels are comfortable. I must admit I'm puzzled by the Deathworld classification." Dr. Palmer smiled and gestured toward the meadow around them. "Officer Chiron, what you're seeing here is what we consider one of the safest and most peaceful environments on our planet. Would you like to begin with something we humans think of as completely harmless?" The alien suit detected no immediate threat, so Chiron agreed to begin the survey. Within moments, a common housefly landed on his faceplate and began walking across the transparent surface. The insect was tiny and seemed utterly insignificant, but Dr. Liu used this opportunity to deliver the first shock. "That little creature," she said, pointing at the fly, "is a disease vector. It carries over 100 different pathogens, including bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Every day, billions of these insects land on food sources, waste materials, and then transfer those contaminants to everything they touch. Humans live alongside trillions of such creatures without much concern." Chiron's instrument reading spiked as his suit detected the microscopic organisms coating the fly. The alien took an involuntary step backward as he realized that something so small and seemingly innocent was actually a biological weapon that would be classified as a Class 7 hazard on most worlds. "But surely you have protective measures against such creatures," Chiron said, his voice carrying the first notes of concern. Dr. Palmer chuckled and waved his hand through the air around them. 3 more flies immediately appeared, along with several gnats and a mosquito that began circling the group with obvious interest. "We do have some protections," Dr. Palmer explained, "but mostly we just accept that they're part of life. Our immune systems evolved to handle constant exposure to pathogens. What would kill most species in the galaxy we consider a minor inconvenience at worst." The group moved deeper into the meadow where a garden spider had built its web between 2 wildflower stems. The delicate structure caught the morning light like jewelry made from dewdrops and seemed beautiful rather than threatening. Dr. Liu knelt beside the web and gestured for the alien to observe the spider waiting motionless at its center. Earth hosts over 45,000 spider species, she said in the same casual tone she might use to discuss the weather. This particular spider is completely harmless to humans, but its venom could kill creatures much larger than itself. The web is constructed from silk that is stronger pound for pound than steel cable. The spider can detect vibrations in the web from distances that would be impossible for most galactic species to perceive. Chiron's environmental suit was now registering dozens of potential threats in what the humans had described as a safe area. His instruments detected toxic compounds in the plants, chemical warfare between different insect species and predator-prey, relationships that involved levels of violence that would be considered shocking on most civilized worlds. Dr. Palmer, the alien said carefully, perhaps we should move to a more controlled environment. Your urban areas must surely be safer than this wilderness. Dr. Palmer and Dr. Liu exchanged amused glances. Actually, Officer Chiron, our cities are far more dangerous than this meadow. Would you like to meet one of our urban predators? A golden retriever came bounding across the field toward them, its tail wagging and tongue hanging out in the universal expression of canine joy. To the humans, the dog represented everything good about domestic animals, but Chiron's suit immediately classified it as a Class 9 biological threat. This is Rex, Dr. Palmer said, scratching the dog behind the ears. He's what we call a pet. Humans keep millions of these creatures in our homes as companions. Rex here is descended from wolves, and his jaws can exert over 300 pounds of pressure per square inch. He could easily crush bones or tear through most materials, but we consider him gentle and friendly. The dog approached Chiron with curiosity, and the alien suit registered the massive bacterial colonies in the animal's mouth, the potential for disease transmission, and the clear evidence of a predator adapted for killing large prey. Yet the humans treated this creature with casual affection and allowed it to live in their homes with their children. Dr. Liu, Chiron said, his voice now openly worried, how do your young survive in such conditions? Surely you must protect them from these dangers. Dr. Liu smiled and pulled out her phone to show pictures of her own children playing with their family dog, building mud pies in the garden, and catching fireflies with their bare hands. Human children are exposed to all of these things from birth. It makes them stronger and more resistant to disease. We don't protect them from nature, we teach them to live with it. The final revelation came when Dr. Liu mentioned the microscopic world that the aliens could not see, but their instruments could detect everywhere around them. She explained that every human carried roughly 100 trillion bacterial cells in their body, outnumbering their own human cells. The air they breathed contained millions of microorganisms. Every surface they touched teemed with invisible life forms that would be considered biological weapons on most worlds. You mean to say, Chiron asked in a voice that had risen several octaves, that you are walking biological warfare laboratories? Your entire species carries enough pathogens to devastate unprepared worlds, Dr. Palmer nodded cheerfully. We prefer to think of ourselves as having really good immune systems. But, yes, I suppose from your perspective we might seem a bit dangerous. This is just normal life for us. Chiron contacted his ship, immediately requesting emergency extraction protocols. His voice carried panic as he reported that the humans were living in conditions that would require Class 15 environmental protection and that Earth's biosphere was actively hostile to any life form that had not evolved specifically to survive its incredibly dangerous conditions. Captain Velkith, monitoring from orbit, began to understand that Earth's Deathworld classification was not an error. If anything, it was a severe underestimation of just how lethal this planet really was. The decontamination procedures aboard the Velinara took 16 hours and used enough sterilization energy to power a small city. Officer Chiron and his research team stood in chambers that bombarded them with radiation designed to kill any Earth organisms that might have somehow penetrated their Class 10 environmental suits. Ship's physician Mortalis ran scan after scan with growing alarm as her instruments detected traces of thousands of unknown microorganisms that had somehow found their way past technology designed to protect against the most hostile environments in known space. "How is this possible?" Captain Velkith asked as he reviewed the medical reports in his command chamber. The walls around him displayed holographic readings that painted a picture of a planet so biologically aggressive that it seemed to actively attack any foreign presence. "Our suits are rated for worlds where the very atmosphere burns flesh and the ground itself secretes acid. How did Earth's organisms penetrate our defenses?" Mortalis adjusted her forearms nervously as she explained her findings. "Captain, the Earth organisms are not more powerful than what our suits are designed to handle. They are simply more persistent and numerous than anything we have ever encountered. Where a Class 10 death world might have thousands of hostile organisms per cubic meter, Earth has millions. Where other dangerous worlds have organisms that attack with crude force, Earth's life forms use sophisticated chemical warfare and adaptation strategies that evolve in real time." The revelation that their advanced technology had been compromised by what humans considered ordinary life prompted Captain Velkith to request another meeting with Earth's representatives. This time, however, the conversation would focus on understanding how any intelligent species could have possibly evolved under such conditions and what that evolution had created. President Chun authorized a cultural exchange that would send some of humanity's best minds to explain human development to the bewildered aliens. Dr. Ryan Clark was an anthropologist who specialized in human evolution, and Colonel Patricia Hayes was a military historian who understood the darker aspects of human nature. Together, they would represent the full spectrum of what it meant to be human. Dr. Clark began the presentation by showing holographic displays of early human ancestors and explaining the incredible journey that had led from primitive apes to modern civilization. "Our species evolved through a process we call natural selection," he explained to the assembled Zephyrian scientists. "The weak died and the strong survived to pass on their traits. For millions of years, Earth constantly tested our ancestors with predators, diseases, environmental disasters, and competition for limited resources." The aliens listened with growing amazement as Dr. Clark described how early humans had survived by developing endurance hunting techniques that allowed them to chase prey animals to death across vast distances. He explained how human ancestors had learned to make tools from stones and sticks, transforming everyday objects into weapons capable of killing creatures many times their size. "Your ancestors were persistence predators," Officer Chiron said with something that sounded like horror in his musical voice. "They hunted by causing exhaustion and terror in their prey until the victim simply collapsed from fear and fatigue." Dr. Clark nodded calmly. "Humans are still persistence predators. We just don't usually hunt animals anymore. We've redirected those same instincts toward other pursuits like business, sports, and exploration. The drive to never give up and to keep pushing until we achieve our goals is still very much part of human nature." Colonel Hayes took over the presentation to explain the military aspects of human development. Her uniform was crisp, and her bearing spoke of someone who had seen combat and understood its realities. Dr. Clark has explained how humans learn to cooperate to survive external threats. What he hasn't mentioned is that we have also been at war with ourselves for our entire recorded history. The holographic displays now showed human battlefields, from ancient spears and shields to modern tanks and aircraft. Colonel Hayes explained how humans had developed increasingly sophisticated ways to kill each other, while simultaneously building the technologies and social structures that allowed civilization to flourish. "You fight your own species?" Captain Velketh asked in disbelief. "Even while facing the constant threats of your Deathworld environment, you also engage in warfare against other members of your own kind." Colonel Hayes smiled grimly. "Humans have never achieved lasting peace in our entire history. We have been in a state of active warfare somewhere on our planet for thousands of consecutive years. Competition and conflict are so fundamental to human nature that we consider them normal and necessary parts of life. The aliens struggled to understand how such a species could have built cities and developed space travel when they seemed to spend so much energy fighting each other. Dr. Clark explained that human warfare had actually accelerated technological development as each side sought advantages over their enemies. The same competitive instincts that drove humans to war also drove them to innovate and create. Your people find violence entertaining, Mortalis observed as she reviewed human media transmissions. You create fictional stories about combat and warfare for recreational purposes. Your children play games that simulate death and destruction. Dr. Clark acknowledged this observation without any sign of embarrassment. Humans enjoy controlled violence as entertainment because it allows us to experience the excitement and challenge of conflict without the actual danger. Combat sports movies about war and competitive games all serve as outlets for instincts that helped our ancestors survive. The conversation turned to human physiology, and the Zephyrian medical officer became fascinated by the redundant systems and damage tolerance that human bodies displayed. Colonel Hayes explained that humans could continue fighting even after suffering injuries that would incapacitate most galactic species. She described how human soldiers had been known to continue combat operations with broken bones, internal bleeding, and wounds that should have been fatal. Your pain tolerance alone is remarkable, Mortalis said, reviewing the physiological data. Humans can function normally while experiencing sensations that would cause most species to enter shock or unconsciousness. Your healing rates are also exceptional, and your bodies seem designed to continue operating even when significantly damaged. Dr. Clark pointed out that these abilities were not unique to soldiers, but were shared by all humans regardless of their profession or training. Human children routinely survived accidents and injuries that would kill young members of most other species. Human adults worked in conditions and performed physical labor that would be considered impossible on most worlds. What you must understand, Dr. Clark said as the presentation neared its conclusion, is that humans do not see any of this as unusual or remarkable. From our perspective, we are simply living normal lives on a normal planet. The constant dangers, the physical challenges, the competition and conflict are all just part of what we consider everyday existence. Captain Velkith sat in stunned silence as he processed what he had learned. Humanity had not simply survived their death world. They had been forged by it into something the galaxy had never encountered before. Earth had created a species that thrived on danger, embraced conflict, and treated the impossible as merely difficult. Captain Velkith found himself unable to sleep during what should have been his rest period as his mind struggled to process the revelations about human nature and Earth's hostile environment. The more he learned about this species and their world, the more he realized that the Galactic Council's classification systems were completely inadequate for describing what they had encountered. He decided that a comprehensive survey of Earth's most extreme environments was necessary to complete their scientific records and perhaps to understand the full scope of what humanity had overcome to achieve. Civilization. Dr. Jennifer Wright was Earth's leading planetary ecologist and had spent her career studying life in extreme environments that most humans considered uninhabitable. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hughes had served as a survival instructor for military forces and had personally experienced some of the most challenging conditions Earth could offer. Together, they would guide the Zephyrians through virtual tours of regions that would make their previous meadow encounter seem like a peaceful garden. The first destination was Earth's deep ocean, where crushing pressure and absolute darkness created conditions that the aliens assumed would be barren of significant life. Dr. Wright's holographic presentations showed creatures that defied every Galactic Council assumption about what was possible in such environments. Giant Pacific octopi with tentacles longer than most alien spacecraft used intelligence and camouflage abilities that bordered on the supernatural to hunt prey in the lightless depths. The pressure at these depths would instantly crush most galactic species, Dr. Wright explained as images of the Mariana Trench filled the display screens. Yet Earth has evolved complex ecosystems that thrive under conditions that your people would consider instantly lethal. The creatures here have never seen sunlight and survive by eating chemicals from volcanic vents or by hunting each other in complete darkness. Officer Kyleron studied the data readings with growing disbelief. These organisms exist under pressures that would collapse our ship's hull. How do they maintain structural integrity while remaining flexible enough for movement and predation? Dr. Wright smiled as she displayed footage of a great white shark attacking a seal with prehistoric efficiency. Evolution found a way. Every challenge Earth presents is met by life forms that not only survive but dominate their environment. This shark species has remained virtually unchanged for over 400 million years because they achieved evolutionary perfection for their role as ocean predators. The tour moved to terrestrial extremes, and Lieutenant Colonel Hughes took over to describe the Australian continent, where evolution seemed to have developed a particular fondness for creating deadly organisms. He showed them creatures like the blue-ringed octopus, which was small enough to hold in a human hand but carried enough venom to kill dozens of beings much larger than itself. Australia is what we call a continent-sized laboratory for dangerous life forms, Hughes explained with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. Nearly every species there has evolved some form of toxin venom or defensive mechanism that would be classified as a biological weapon on most worlds. Even the seemingly harmless platypus carries venom that can cause pain so intense it cannot be treated with any known medication. Zephyrians learned about plants that could kill with a simple touch, trees that exploded in fires hot enough to melt metal, and flowers that use chemical warfare so sophisticated it put most galactic weapons technology to shame. Captain Velkith realized that Earth's plant life was as dangerous as its animal life, with some species using toxins that could kill simply through skin contact or inhalation. Your rainforests are particularly remarkable, Mortalis observed as she studied biological data from the Amazon basin. Every plant and animal exists in a constant state of chemical warfare, using compounds that would be classified as weapons of mass destruction if artificially created. How do any organisms survive in such an environment? Dr. Wright's response revealed another layer of Earth's incredible complexity. They survive by developing resistance to some toxins while producing their own to defend against others. The rainforest is essentially a biological arms race that has been going on for millions of years, with each species constantly evolving new offensive and defensive capabilities. The revelation that stunned the aliens most came when they explored human-created environments. Dr. Wright showed them major cities where millions of humans lived in close proximity, creating perfect conditions for disease transmission and social violence. Rather than being weakened by such conditions, humans had thrived and built increasingly complex civilizations. Your cities contain population densities that would trigger panic evacuations on most worlds, Captain Velkith observed as he studied images of Tokyo and New York. The potential for disease outbreak, resource competition, and social breakdown should make such concentrations impossible. Lieutenant Colonel Hughes explained that humans actually preferred living in such conditions and actively sought out the challenges and opportunities that cities provided. Humans are social predators, he said, using a phrase that made the aliens visibly uncomfortable. We evolved in groups, and we function best when we have access to large numbers of other humans for cooperation, competition, and social interaction. The tour concluded with what Dr. Wright called recreational extreme environments, where humans voluntarily expose themselves to conditions that would be considered torture on most worlds. She showed footage of mountain climbers ascending peaks where the air was too thin to support life, rock climbers scaling vertical walls with no safety equipment, and deep sea divers descending to crushing depths for the simple pleasure of exploration. Humans regularly visit these environments for entertainment, Dr. Wright explained as images of base jumpers and volcano explorers filled the screens. We consider exposure to mortal danger a recreational activity. What your people would classify as survival emergencies, we treat as vacation destinations. Officer Chiron's instruments detected his own stress responses spiking as he processed this information. You seek out danger voluntarily. You expose yourselves to potentially lethal conditions for no reason other than personal satisfaction. Lieutenant Colonel Hughes nodded cheerfully. Humans get bored if life becomes too safe or predictable. We need challenge, danger, and the possibility of failure to feel truly alive. A completely safe environment would be psychological torture for most humans. The final shock came when the aliens learned that humans had actually made their world more dangerous through their own activities. Dr. Wright explained how human technology had created weapons capable of sterilizing entire continents, how human industry had altered atmospheric composition, and how human urban development had created new ecological niches for organisms that had evolved specifically to exploit human civilization. You have not simply survived your death world, Captain Velka said in a voice filled with something approaching awe. You have actively made it more dangerous and then adapted to thrive under the increased threats. Dr. Wright's final statement summarized the human condition in words that would echo through Galactic Council debates for generations to come. Captain Earth didn't just create survivors. It created a species that sees impossible challenges as opportunities and considers the deadliest environments in the universe to be places worth exploring. We are not victims of our world's hostility. We are its willing partners in an endless dance of adaptation and survival. The Galactic Council chamber on the distant world of Nexus Prime had never hosted a session quite like this one. Representatives from 47 different species filled the crystalline amphitheater, while holographic projections allowed thousands more to observe from their homeworlds. At the center of it all, Chief Science Officer Chiron of the Zephyrian research vessel stood before the assembled delegates with data that would fundamentally change how the galaxy understood life itself. Dr. Michelle Santos and Ambassador Robert Taylor represented humanity in this historic moment, sitting in specially constructed chairs that accommodated their smaller stature compared to most galactic species. Both humans wore simple diplomatic attire that seemed almost primitive compared to the elaborate environmental suits and technological augmentations displayed by other delegates, but their quiet confidence suggested they were comfortable being surrounded by beings who could easily overpower them physically. Honored delegates, Chiron began his voice, carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. Our research team was sent to investigate the classification of Earth as a Class 13 death world. What we discovered challenges every assumption our civilization has made about the limits of biological possibility and the conditions under which intelligent life can develop. The holographic displays activated, showing images of Earth from space with its blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents. To most species in the galaxy, it looked like a paradise world with perfect conditions for supporting life. The delegates stirred restlessly, wondering why such a beautiful planet had earned the highest danger rating in their databases. Our initial assessment was that Earth's classification was an error, Chiron continued. The planet showed stable geology, moderate gravity, and acceptable atmospheric conditions. However, upon closer investigation, we discovered that Earth's danger rating severely underestimates the planet's true lethality. We recommend upgrading it to Class 15, a new category that we must create specifically for this world. Gasps and alarmed, chittering sounds filled the chamber as delegates realized they were hearing about a planet more dangerous than anything in known space. The holographic displays began showing microscopic images of Earth's bacterial colonies, viral populations, and parasitic organisms that existed in numbers too large for most minds to comprehend. Earth does not simply harbor dangerous life forms, Chiron explained as images of predators and toxic plants filled the viewing screens. It actively evolves increasingly lethal organisms through constant environmental pressure and biological competition. Every creature on this planet exists in a state of perpetual warfare against every other creature with survival, depending on the ability to kill or avoid being killed. Ambassador Taylor rose from his seat and requested permission to address the council. His voice carried the calm authority of someone who had spent decades in diplomatic negotiations, but also held undertones that suggested he was very comfortable with the violent reality that Chiron was describing. Honored delegates, Taylor said. Officer Chiron has accurately described our world, but I want to ensure you understand humanity's position in this discussion. We do not see Earth as particularly dangerous because we evolved alongside its threats. To us, this planet is simply home. What you consider lethal hazards, we consider minor inconveniences or normal parts of daily life. The revelation that humans considered their nightmare world to be normal home sent waves of shocked silence through the chamber. Dr. Santos activated her own holographic display showing human children playing in environments that would require emergency evacuation protocols on most worlds. Every human carries bacterial and viral agents that could potentially devastate worlds. With less aggressive biospheres, she explained in the matter-of-fact tone of a scientist discussing research. Data. Our technology has created weapons capable of sterilizing entire planets. Our cities house millions of individuals in population densities that would trigger social collapse on most worlds. Yet we thrive under these conditions because they are what shaped us into what we have become. Council Chairman Zorthak of the Andromedian Empire spoke for the first time since the session began. His massive form dominated the central podium as he considered the implications of what he was hearing. Dr. Santos, are you saying that humanity poses a threat to galactic security simply by existing? Dr. Santos smiled with an expression that somehow managed to be both reassuring and slightly predatory. Chairman, we pose no intentional threat to anyone. However, we do represent something the galaxy has never encountered before. Earth's extreme conditions produce the ultimate survivors, and we carry those survival capabilities with us wherever we go. Officer Chiron resumed his presentation by showing footage of humans voluntarily exposing themselves to conditions that would be classified as torture on most worlds. Mountain climbers scaling peaks in air too thin to breathe. Deep sea explorers descending to crushing depths. Soldiers fighting in environments that would kill most species before they could even attempt combat. What makes humanity truly remarkable, Chiron said, is not just their ability to survive impossible conditions, but their tendency to seek out such conditions for recreation and personal satisfaction. They are persistent predators who treat the deadliest environments in the universe as entertainment venues. The debate that followed would continue for days as delegates from across the galaxy struggled to understand how to interact with a species that seemed to embody everything they feared about hostile worlds. Some argued for quarantine protocols that would keep humans isolated on their death world. Others suggested that humanity's capabilities made them too valuable as allies to waste through isolation. Dr. Santos stood to address the final concern. Delegates, I understand your fear, but I want to offer a different perspective. Yes, Earth is hostile, and yes, it created humans who are adapted for survival in impossible conditions. But consider what that means for galactic civilization. We are survivors who never give up, problem solvers, who thrive under pressure, and explorers who see the impossible as merely difficult. Ambassador Taylor added his own closing statement. Earth has spent millions of years testing our species, and we have passed every test. We do not seek to conquer or dominate. We seek to explore, learn, and build relationships with others who share our curiosity about the universe. Our harsh origins made us strong, but they also taught us the value of cooperation and mutual support. Chairman Zorthak called for the historic vote that would determine humanity's place in galactic civilization. The delegates considered not just the dangers that humans might represent, but also the incredible resilience and capabilities that their Deathworld origins had given them. The final tally was closer than anyone expected, but the outcome would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Humanity was granted full membership in galactic civilization with a unique designation that recognized both their origins and their potential. Earth, Chairman Zorthak announced, is hereby classified as the galaxy's first forge world, a planet so hostile that it creates species capable of surviving anywhere in the universe. Humanity is granted membership not despite their Deathworld origins, but because those origins produced beings who can help make the universe safer for all who follow in their wake. Captain Velkith delivered the closing statement that would be remembered throughout galactic history. We feared Earth because we did not understand it. Now we understand that Earth did not create monsters. It created the ultimate survivors, and we are honored to call them allies. The galaxy will never underestimate a Deathworld species again. The session ended with humanity's acceptance into a community of worlds that span the galaxy. Earth's classification as a Class 15 Deathworld remained, but it was joined by a new designation as humanity's greatest gift to galactic civilization. The universe had gained its first Deathworld species, and nothing would ever be quite the same again.